There's a new AI-powered companion in town, and this one's just a little bit different than Humane's shirt-mounted pin. Rabbit just launched its R1 with a bright orange design, a 360-degree rotating camera, and no subscription fee. So let's unbox it and dive right in. The minute you unbox Rabbit's R1, which just happens to come in a box that also kind of looks like a rabbit, you're immediately met with the company's quirky design. Of course, the R1 was co-engineered with the minds over at Teenage Engineering, so it's pretty easy to see both the industrial and the retro inspiration for the design. Honestly, to my eye, it looks almost like a more traditional smartphone mixed with a fidget toy. So a little bit of the best of both worlds as far as a display, a rotating crown, and a button on the side. Size-wise, it's just about the same size as Samsung's Galaxy Z Flip 5, when closed, of course, and it's significantly lighter than the folding phone. As far as unboxings go, there's actually not a whole lot to dig into with the R1. You get the R1 itself, its clear plastic carrying case, and that's it. Although the R1 charges via USB-C, you don't actually get a cable in the box, nor do you get a charger. And in fact, you don't get any form of startup paperwork either, instead relying on a QR code that's on the case itself so that you can set it up on your computer. And while it might be pretty easy to dismiss Rabbit's clear case as just an optional extra or an unneeded accessory, it's actually kind of a clever piece of engineering. The inspiration comes from old cassette tape boxes, so it actually folds open and kind of props up your R1 as a kickstand, should you decide you'd rather type on the device than speak to it using the microphones. The first thing you need to do, and the one thing you can do before you actually have your R1, is to create an account through the Rabbit Hole. The Rabbit Hole is essentially the companion's base of operations, which you'll use to connect to other services like Spotify and Uber, but it'll also keep a log of every time you ask a question, everything the camera identifies as needed, and anytime you generate an image through Midjourney. Of course, the Rabbit Hole is also your guide to Teach Mode, which we'll come back to a little further down the road once we've had some more time with the R1. But it's essentially the way that you can train your companion for new tasks like shopping on Amazon that aren't quite ready yet. Once you finally have your account, you can get into the setup process itself. And as soon as you power on the R1, you're met with everyone's favorite thing, a software update. So while that runs, I have a couple first thoughts on the hardware itself. The first is that Rabbit's R1 is pretty much as tactile as Humane's AI pin is digital. You control pretty much everything you do using the buttons, the wheel, and the microphones that are mounted around the plastic housing. If you find yourself in a quiet scenario where you can't readily talk to your R1, you can also turn it sideways and activate terminal mode, which automatically mutes the companion itself, allowing you to type and receive written responses rather than talking and getting a verbal answer. And honestly, the side button and the rotating crown kind of feel like smartwatch controls, though I've noticed there's no comfortable tactile response. You're not going to actually feel the crown click as you spin it around, but the R1 does make an artificial sound, so you still know that it's moving, and you can see the menus change on your screen. And as a righty, I've spent most of my time controlling the R1 just using my thumb, and it's been pretty comfortable. I'm not quite sure that lefties will have the same convenience, just based on having to either use their index finger or flip the R1 itself over and try to use their thumb that way. But in that case, you'd be blocking the 360-degree rotating eye, which means you'd probably have to find a different way to hold the Rabbit R1, just to make sure you can still identify what's around you. Also, as a $200 AI companion, it's not really a surprise to see the R1 made entirely of plastic, but it feels pretty sturdy in the hand. There's only one really noticeable crease, and that runs around the back panel, but the rest of it feels pretty tight and solid. However, the glossy orange finish might be the most smudge-prone, fingerprint-loving device I've ever held. From the minute you pick it up, and you have to use it with your hands, there's no good way to activate the voice assistant hands-free, so it's gonna start picking up fingerprints from the moment you take it out of the box. And although I haven't had a ton of time to quiz the R1 myself or use it to order an Uber ride or DoorDash some food to my apartment, Rabbit CEO Jessie Liu demonstrated all of the day one features for us on stage at the keynote. As you might guess, some worked a little bit better than others, with simple quiz questions coming back with quick responses, but more in-depth location-based data, like trying to order McNuggets to the hotel or grabbing a ride to Central Park, were a bit more complicated and took a couple extra seconds. We still have a ton of testing to do with the Rabbit R1, and these are really just the basic first impressions after only 24 hours with the device. So stay tuned for a ton more testing here on Android Authority, and you can grab an R1 for yourself down below.